Now, as I was dismantling the tube and taking it out, I noticed that the tube actually has already seemed to be stained. Now, I don't know what that is or why it's staining it white like that. I've only had one other coolant in these parts, and that was a EKUV blue, and I drained it, but it still seems to have been stained at some point. This was all brand new tubing, and it's still got a hue of white to it. So I'm going to be replacing all the tube again, and hope that the draining of this will um, maybe clear it up a little bit as well with the biocide that I'm putting in, and that should hopefully take care of it, unless it's actual tubing, at which point the fresher tubing is not good for distilled water. So at this point, we're ready to fill the loop, and I have everything mounted properly, as well as I've used a 90-degree fitting into the top of the fill port. The bottom and side of the pump are flush to the ground, and I had to Dremel out one of the stands at the bottom of the case in order to get this flush. But as you can see, it's angled properly to the graphics card, and the CPU has now a 45-degree angle going behind into the res. There's the fill port that you can see, and I'll take a look around back. Um, Ones in a second. The reservoir has been moved down enough to the point where there's a very small connection to the pump, and I probably could have used a different connector at that point. However, purchasing several different connectors it becomes expensive, and if you don't have all the proper ones, then you have to wait a couple of weeks before you get it, and it's not very easy to get water cooling connectors in Canada. In order to attach the fill port to the case, I used an extension fitting going into the fill port, and that is what's bracing it into the case and screwed them together. So all you have to do is unscrew that cap, put on a 45-degree angle fitting, and go ahead and start filling. So one of the things I was adding to the loop for the first time is a corrosion blocker. I chose to use Fesser-based corrosion blocker. The reason for this is because I'm using their tubing. I would hope that their corrosion blocker and tubing would go together. This is a 50 milliliter bottle, and that will treat 2 liters of coolant. And in this case, I probably only have 750 milliliters. One of the things I want to show you is how I fill up my loops. I got this from my Thermaltake Big Water 760. It's a great way to fill up the loop. You basically just put the coolant in there, screw on the top, and the angle and the thinness of the top is very, very easy to use. You can put it in very small crevasses, and it's very simple. I think it works a lot better than any of the syringe methods that you guys use. So now we're just filling up the loop, and each bottle is 250 milliliters of water. So I'm able to judge how much I've put in per the amount of bottles I put in. So right now, just gonna go to the first one and screw that on tight and use the fill port for the first time. Um, The only issue with the fill port that I had was I need to put a angled fitting because currently it's just a 90-degree fitting, and so if I put a sort of a 45-degree fitting at the end of it, then I'd be able to easily um, fill it up without having to worry about it dripping back out. So here we just filling up the res and checking for leaks. Last time I had a lot of leaks because I think the O-rings and some of the fittings weren't tight enough. This time it seemed to be fine, and there were no issues with the leaking. So since the res is almost filled, I'm going to start it up, and one res fill usually fills up the whole loop, and then I can probably put another uh, 300 to 300 milliliters of liquid in there. It's only a dual loop with one radiator. So here I am checking to make sure that there's no leaks. It hasn't been turned on yet, but like I said last time, there were some leaks right off the bat without any pressure of the pump actually turning on yet. You really should have towels down. I actually do not. Uh, Best practices is to have towels down and make sure that nothing's going to drip on your components. But I had done a uh, test of the O-rings and made sure that everything was fully tight before I turned it on. So one full 250 milliliter res did not fill up the loop entirely, so I'm going to go ahead and refill it and then go ahead and look for leaks. Now, the original mod was fine, as I indicated with the first part of the series. Adding a fill port was a little excessive and unnecessary, and in fact, if I had to do it again, I most likely wouldn't put it in this case. Reasons being, it's just too small. Everything is very tight and cramped, especially when you get down to the bottom there where it's res pump config as well as a radiator. So you have to connect all of that together, and it's very, very small area and very hard to screw the compression fittings as well as get the tubing on the compression fittings properly with the proper angles and proper lengths of tubing. So you can plan to have it um, from the start, which wouldn't be too bad, but I did it after the fact and didn't have it planned out with the proper fittings and sizes and locations uh, in order to really attack this project. I'm now adding the Fesher base corrosion blocker. There's probably just under about a liter of distilled water that's running through this loop here. And so I put about just a little under 25 milliliters, more like 18 milliliters of it in. And I noticed that it was quite fizzy. Um, you'll be able to see what I mean in the video here. It sort of foamed up, and I don't know if that was because it hadn't been circulating enough yet or what have you, but um, it started to worry me as there was some foam bubbles, and it seemed to actually go alongside the acrylic panel of the reservoir. It did dissipate and it did clear up. It just really showed the air bubbles quite significantly once I added it. We can see here that it's showing quite a cloud, and it's not that I put in too much of the Fesher base. It's just that it wasn't mixing into the system just yet. So basically, I just let it go for another hour and put in some more water, let the air bubbles come out, and it cleared right up, as well as the tubes look murky now, but they end up clearing up as well. So next, I'll show you the final product and cable management, which I hate. So that's next. So everything seems to be running smooth, no leaks this time. Take a look at the drain port. It's actually positioned perfectly underneath the radiator. I was able to connect the disconnect right away without having any angles or issues with it, and that will be used obviously if I have to drain the loop. Now there's two fan filters on the front fans, which there weren't before because they were pushing air outside of the case. So there wasn't going to be any need for the fan filters on there. The cable management is a mess, but there's the fill port. Um, it's closed, and to fill it up, you just unscrew it, and you can actually put a 45-degree angle fitting in there or anything else that you want in order to fill it up easier. And like I said, this was an extreme mod for such a small addition. There's the 3 terabyte hard drive that's mounted to the back. I have to do the cable management, obviously. Um, all the fan controls are working as they were, and there you can see the 90-degree going into the fill port, and behind the res, which has been lifted, is the tube going into the radiator, and everything else is perfectly aligned. The This was the hardest part to configure, was getting inside there with my hands, and it's such a small fitting to the pump. But if I had more money to add to this, I would have bought a 90-degree rotary fitting in order to attach the res and pump config. But I didn't know exactly how I was going to do it, so I was able to do it with the parts that I had, so I'm happy. And now I'm just going to go stress test again and do cable management, and that's it for now. So rate, subscribe, and tell me what you think. And I'd love to hear suggestions.